have the components of an EKG. Which ones are the components of the EKG? Correct. P wave, QRS, and the T wave. Is the U wave part of the EKG?
No.
Not of the normal EKG. Remember, everything that is not there, that is going to be showing up on an EKG recording, is going to be abnormal. So we start from the normal. Knowing the normal, we know now what is the abnormal. So the R wave, is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Correct. What is the name of that line where all these waves are deriving from?
Baseline.
Baseline. What is another name for baseline? Isoelectric line.
Isoelectric.
We're going to see it later on. This is another picture. See? Baseline. You have the segments right here. So it has colors right there so you can identify where they start, where they end. Because that is the important. See? The other ones, we didn't have that. So, right here. Oh. What did I do with that? Did I miss it? Oh. I went back. So this. See? Right here, we have to mark it, but with a line. Right? The other one comes with the colors. So, every single time that one of these chambers contracts, you have to give a little time for filling in and to pass the blood to the other end, right? You can have this one on top of this one. Can you imagine if this little pulse, because this is a pulse that the electrical impulses does, and what is this pulse right here represented by?
By the line?
By the relaxation?
AB node, the gatekeeper.
Oh, the gatekeeper.
See? The atria contracts.
So
The switch right here. So the AB node is represented by the PR segment. See? PR segment. Because the atria contracts, the ventricles don't have to contract immediately. No, you have a, remember, this is seconds. This is not minutes, this is seconds. So then you have a little pause. Why? Because when this is ejecting blood to the lower level, the electrical impulses going to the ventricles is going to stop. Because I want you to push all this blood to the ventricles, then I turn the switch on so the ventricles can become active. Other than that, no. And that AB node is represented here. So let's say that you have not that, but this represented on an EKG to see if you understood the function of the pulse or the AB node. Let's say that you have this, right? This is the baseline. Now this is the P, and right there, the QRS is there. So what happened right there? What happened to the pulse? There was no pulse. It means that the AB node is not working, didn't do the stop. Therefore, the QRS immediately kicked in. This is not good because I have to see this on an EKG always. You know, always. Correct. I have to see all these little spaces in between. Waves, spaces, wave, spaces. See?
Wave.
After this space, wave, space, wave, space.
So if that happened,
Then the AB node's problem. So the AB node switch is not turning off when it's supposed to turn off. Then this patient needs to go see the cardiologist.
Okay.
And the cardiologist is a specialist that deals with this problem, and they will determine what is the problem, what's going on with the AB node.
So what's a problem that could be happening to a patient like that? They could be getting like a heart attack or something?
Well, that leads to heart attack, to stroke, to death. Because you have to have a space.
Right.
Think about this. You're running and running and running. For how long you can run? You're gonna go, you're gonna go of air, oxygen. So you're gonna collapse. So you have to stop and then continue. But you can't just run. So that's what is happening. Here the heart is the same. So the atria contracts, makes a little pause, give it time for the ventricles to fill in. Now, ventricles, when it's filled in, the AV node allow electrical impulses to go to the ventricle. The ventricles now contract, push the blood outside the ventricles, and the atria do the same. So continuously, simultaneously, they are contracting, releasing, and relaxing. When this contracts, this relaxes. And vice versa. When this contracts, this is relaxing. But you have to have little spaces in between.
Okay.
It's like us in the class. We need breaks, right? You can't just go straight up. Because number one, it gets tiring. All this information is not going to be sinking in, so we have a little problem. So this PR segment. Questions for the PR segment. First of all, it is called the PR because it goes between the P and the R. Now, Professor, but there is a Q over there. Well, it turns out that the Q on certain EKGs, you don't see it. We assume that it's there, but sometimes we don't see it. So if we don't see it, what are we going to use as a reference the Q? So if the Q is not there, then what is the PR? What is the PQ ends or begin? So not a problem. So we use the R because the R is always present. Is that understood? In a normal EKG. The Q, sometimes we don't see it. It is so small that got lost right here when it connects with the R. Remember that this is drawing. Just to show you all the waves the way there's, they're supposed to be, but in reality, we don't see it that way. So, definitions for the PR segment. It is the time in between the ending of the P and the beginning of the R. See? Just look at the PR interval where it's located. So if they ask you for the definition of the PR segment, there are different ways of finding the answer. Remember, one of them is the distance between the end of the P and the beginning of the R. This is one definition. What other definition you can come out with? Yes. It is the time, because this line, this isoelectric or baseline, measures time. Later on, we're going to see that. It is the time in between the contraction of the atria and the contraction of the ventricles. See? If we put it together, it says, oh yeah, that makes sense. Right? We can say just the space in between the end of the P and the beginning of the Q. That's one answer. The time in between the contraction of, because this is contraction of the P, or depolarization of the P, and the contraction of depolarization of the ventricles, which is the QRS. So that's how we have to see how to understand the answers. For those who were in here yesterday, for the EKG exam, I'm going to give you a take-home exam. Is that understood? But I will give you a due date. You have to return it within that time frame. So instead of giving you a test right here, it's to see who answered, who. I'm not for that, right? I just want to make sure that you review it and you sure and you look for the answers. It's like doing a little review. Is that understood? So later on, when some of these questions come on your test, you know what you're doing. Got it? Good. Now let's talk about the ST segment, because That is another one. So if you learn the PR segment, you should now have the definitions for this. Because it's exactly the same by using different parameters. So the ST segment, what could be one of the definitions based on the PR segment?
It is the distance
Okay.
between, you said ST?
Yes, from here to here.
So it is the distance between,
The contraction of the ventricle, or the relaxation of the ventricle.
Correct.
I have.
That would be one.
Okay.
It
oh,
is
you can
the.
say, okay, really, okay.
It is the time in the beginning of the S and the
In the beginning of the
of
Yeah.
the
with the
S
T.
and the beginning of the T.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. Or you can say, pay attention to this, because this is the end of the QRS, right? So the ST segment is the time in between the end of the QRS complex and the beginning of the T wave. So put it together, because knowing where you are. This is what I do when I take my test for EKG. Because you can do it. This is not cheating. I'm talking about for your national exam. Because these questions are going to come out on your test. And when you see the question, you say, oh my God, you start going over it. It takes too much time.
So we can write it like that in the beginning.
You enter your exam room, you ask for scrap paper, they're gonna give you, but don't bring anything else because they're not gonna allow you to do anything else. Right? You have to enter right there like believers in shorts. I'm not just kidding. Oh. So, oh, now you laugh. So, this is what we're gonna do. When you enter your classroom, you ask for scrap paper, right? And a pencil. So as soon as you enter, you draw that little image. You know it already. It's not that you brought them in. That's called cheating. So you enter your paper, you do this. Or you make a little, now you cannot read it. Maybe you roll like this and like this. And you know already that this is the P. Now at the end and here, this is the PR. Now this is the S, this is the R, oh, I'm sorry, it's the Q, this is the S, this is the ST, and this is the T. That's it. Sometimes I don't even mark it, I leave just the graphic. Why? Because I know which one is it. Oh, what is the PR segment? Oh, it's from here to here. Oh, the end of the P, the beginning of the QRS. Ooh, I know it. I don't see the answer, no problem. The beginning, the end of the atrial depolarization or contraction to the beginning of the ventricle contraction or depolarization. Ah, I got it. Yes, it is written there. So there is always going to be something that is going to tell you. Remember, this is before the QRS. The other one is after. So for that reason, you're going to focus on these points. Always. Read the questions. Which one makes more sense to you? That's how it works. And you will see that you will have no problems with it. Now, let's talk about the intervals. Because we have segments and we have intervals. Intervals, I haven't seen this question because my students tell me everything. Professor, I went to take the test and they gave me this question. I didn't know. What was the question? Oh, more likely like this. I said, I'm going to look for it. And then I said, okay, to my next students, be careful with this because you might have this question. See? That's how I learn. And then I can bring this to you because it's good when you have a little hints, right? How the questions are, done on this. PR interval. What do you see about the PR interval? What is the most obvious answer right there?
Is it how long the
Is that right? No worries.
Is that how long?
From here to there, the distance. Let's put the distance. In between what?
The way.
Beginning of the P
And
beginning
the
of
contraction.
the QRS. That's one. Is the time in between the beginning of the atrial contraction and the beginning of the ventricle contraction or depolarization. One more. PR interval is the sum of the P wave and the PR segment. See? What is this? P wave. What is this? Segments. So if you have the sum of these two, that's the PR interval.
You said a QR. You said the sum of the P wave.
P wave plus the PR segment. See? The P wave and the QR segment.
And it's the time between the atrial contraction.
The distance of the time. When we measuring distance from where to where, then we talk about distance or time, right? But then when we see them together and there is no distance, there is no, you don't find anything on your answer, but it says, oh, it is the P wave plus the PR. Oh, yeah, that's the one. The same goes for, we have here, we can have the ST interval as well. But no worries for that because usually that is not us.
So why do they call it QT? And
No, QT, yeah, I'm talking about ST.
Oh, okay.
What about
And
ST?
this interval. No, because this is one interval, this is another interval. No, the QT,
Yeah, I'm sorry, but what does the
you try to beat me up?
No, I'm sorry. What does ST segment stand for? If PR
S,
segment is for AV.
The wave S, T, the wave T. In between the S and the T, ST segment. There is a space, there is a pause in between this wave and this wave.
But you say PR segment is for AV node.
No.
No.
Oh, PR segment is the AB node.
Yeah.
This is the pause.
Uh-huh.
Remember, we have three batteries, right?
Yeah.
And what is the AB node? What is the function of the AB node? It is the gatekeeper. And what is the gatekeeper? It stops, it turns off the switch. And this is the pause because electricity is not passing now.
So ST segment stop too.
This is stop to before it enters in complete relaxation of the heart. But this is not the AB node. This is not. Because the AB node is here. This is just a regular pause that happens after the heart has contracted, because after the ventricles pumps blood, there is no pumping blood to another chambers, but it's pumping blood to the rest of the body and the other one to the lungs. But here we're gonna give you a little space before the heart goes in a little longer rest, so it can catch up, start again the atria pumping and the ventricles pumping. Now we have the QT interval. Now the QT interval, look at it. If we have the definition for this and this, we should know the definition for the QT interval. Who can give it a try?
The distance between the beginning of the ventricle contraction and the ventricle relaxation.
That will be what part of the ventricular relaxation? The end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what it is. See? The beginning, the QT interval is the time of the space in between the beginning of the QRS and the end of the T wave. That's one definition. Time of space in between the contraction or depolarization of the ventricles and the contraction and the repolarization of the ventricles, the end. Because what does the T represent? Relaxation, depolarization of the ventricles. What does the QT represent? Contraction, depolarization of the ventricles. So we just mark where is the beginning, where it ends.
I thought it was like math. I thought I was gonna be like dividing and stuff. I don't know why.
that we have to divide or multiply.
No, but, like, I just didn't understand it. So when I saw like the printout, I thought like, oh yeah.
No,
they
but we're
put
gonna
that
get there
in
because
there.
then we're gonna calculate the heart rate or the
Oh,
rhythm.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Then we're gonna do math.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah.
So that's-
But it's an easy math.
Okay.
Here is just what you see. And you have a lot of questions from there. If you get questions on your exam, mostly it's gonna be the chambers, the valves, the asta, the blood vessels, and PQRST. They want you to know this, particularly if it is positive, if it's negative, what is first, what is the second positive, what is the first positive, the first negative. Any questions? So here we see it like more in detail, right? Look at here. These little spaces, the PR segment. These little spaces, the SD segment. And remember the whole line right here, because this is going to be kind of the paper, the EKG paper, when we're going to have all these representations. But later on, we're going to talk about each little square inside this big square. Do you see that are big squares? Right here? But in between, there are little ones. And that's how we're going to count how fast your heart is beating or how slow it is.
It says little square.
Yes.
No square. Shit, I can't see all that.
No, we're going to show you a larger square.
So each square is
Oh,
like
okay.
12 seconds?
So just imagine.
Huh?
Each big
The
square is
graphic
like 12
man.
seconds?
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on how you measure it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the graphic table.
So we're going to measure then in
Ridiculous.
a horizontal and vertical lines.
Okay.
But once again, I'm gonna go over it, make it simple, and I'm going to kind of focus more on what is more important for you. All the stuff, if I need to mention it, just for you to understand the concept, but we kind of spend more time on the things that is needed the most. This is just graphics for you to understand the functions of the atria and the ventricles during contraction. So it says right here, atrial depolarization. What is depolarization again? Because I forgot.
Contraction.
Excellent. Contraction. Depolarization is the same. It's just the contraction is a layman term, whereas depolarization is a medical term. Okay? So here we see that the atria begins depolarizing. What it means by begins, because it's filling in with blood. It's not completely full, because when it's completely full, it's on the second picture, where the atria is completely full. Now, what's gonna happen when the atria gets full and have no more space when to pump blood? The AB node immediately turns on and allows the blood to start seeping there because the pressure increases there. Remember that yesterday I mentioned it. What happened to a balloon when you blowing it or you filling it with water? And put water in water. It has no exits. So if it has no exit, it's just gonna burst open, right? It's gonna blow. Here, it's not gonna happen that because it has two doors right here. So immediately the pressure increases, that door forces open. And blood starts seeping like happens right here. Ventricular depolarization begins. But during this process, we have the pauses. Because you have to give you time for each chamber to fill in. So the electricity goes slow. Because if this contracts at the same time, this contracts, you collapse. Heart attack. So that's basically what. So when the upper chambers are filling in, the other ones are relaxed. This is contracting, the other one is relaxing, and vice versa. When this fills in, has to pump blood. One to the lungs, the other one to the rest of the body. And the other one start filling in again. So the process continues again. That's basically what it is. So here we see the ventricles, see? Fill it completely. depolarized because they fill completely. Now we start again, ventricular repolarization. See, this already here, the blood already was sent. The right side sent it to the lungs, and the left side sent it to the rest of the body. Now, this is completely empty, and this starts filling in again, and the process begins. So that's how it works. But for you, the most important thing is to remember depolarization, contraction, relaxation, repolarization, which are the two states of the heart. So here is the answer to those questions that we covered already. It said right there, each PQRST sequence is one heartbeat. So this little graphic that we saw over there that has the PQRST, that's it, that's one heartbeat.
Okay.
And an adult, a normal adult, how many heartbeats we have to have per minute? 60 to 100. If you have 60, you're fine. You have 61, it's fine. 62, up to 100. It is normal. Oh, I have less than 60. Not normal, it's too slow now. It's getting slow.
So how's your heartbeat?
The heartbeat. We have 60 to 100 heartbeats per minute. Adults. Remember, the little kids, they have a faster heart rate. Why? Because they are, no! Because their heart is so little. And so little, it has to work faster to pass the blood and try to do something. That's why the little babies, they don't move much. When they, you know, when they are newborns or when they are an infant, they don't move much.
How I like to see that, like in my head, is, for example, a shorter person has to walk more, and then a taller person could, you know, walk a little.
Oh, because of the long legs,
Yeah.
right?
I would take
Yeah, exactly.
So when you walk in certain distance, that's how it's gonna be. And the, you know, if it is too slow, the heart not pumping fast, you're not receiving enough nutrients, enough oxygen, so you're gonna get tired right away. So once again, now don't mix that up with anemia. Because some people said, oh my God, I feel lazy. Oh, my heart is not working. No, not working. No, has nothing to do with that. It's that
that's crazy.
your hemoglobin. No, some people say like that. Say, no, I used to do a lot of stuff. Now I cannot do so much. I feel tired already. Yeah, it might be your heart, but sometimes it's anemia. Particularly, you feel like kind of drowsy, like kind of, exactly like you don't want to do something. It's like, My son all the time says, oh no, Daddy, I feel sick. I don't know. I don't feel like it when I get up and go to school. I said, well, I feel like I'm going to get you out, so you better get ready. Now, PR segment, flat line between the P wave and the QRS complex. But we gave all the definitions, right? So just for you to know, just in case the definition changes a little bit, because one of the things that this exam has is that some of the questions, the wording changes. It's the same one that you're going to receive, the same one with a different wording. So that's it. Let's say, for instance, they're going to ask you about the color coding of the book, of the books, of the tubes to draw blood, right? So they're going to say to you, they're going to ask you, okay, what will be the second tube in the order of draw to be collected? And they give you the numbers of the tubes. And then you said, oh, light blue. And then for you, they're going to tell you, okay, light blue has which chemical inside, which additive? It's the same question. Or the second tube will contain which additive, instead of asking you the color. So those are the things. So you have to know the things in and out. Because some people say, oh, I know that the light blue has this, but when they ask you the color, you know it's light blue. But when they ask you the chemical, then you forget that there's sodium citrate. So those things are the ones that we gotta walk. And I don't know if you have the little table where you have the order of draw, the little colors of the tubes. Did I give it to you?
I mean, I
it.
No, the requisition, that's totally different. The other one is the order of the tubes. The little colors are settled in order, and they tell you how many times you have to embed it. They tell you what is the chemical inside, and here it is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6.
Do you have another copy of that?
I will send it to you. It's
Thank you.
there. Someone just said
No, he don't even, he's like, he's in another world.
Like a night.
He's
I tell them, you know, listen, I'm going to the 12th floor ACS school, and the guy was like, what do I care? You know, the first day that was remembered, flat line means goes and a pause. So that's the isoelectric line, that's the baseline. The flat line, but you can say the time, the space in between this and that. So just for you to get it. Because sometimes, you know, when we learn only one definition and we encounter in the test something else, and we don't see what we thought was the only possible answer, so then we cannot build those. So that's it. Fortunately for your test, most of the questions are very straightforward. Most of them.
How many?
100 for the medical assistant, 180. For the phlebotomy, 120. Then, you know, but most of them are straightforward. And the answers are very simple. So don't think that you're going to have 2 lines answer. No, sometimes it goes very short answers, straightforward, and you get it. So the time that you spend answering one short one, use that time for the long ones, right? But if you see that you're not getting it, move on to the next one, but mark that because you will not be able to move to the next question if you don't mark that one. So you have to mark. Just pick your best choice. Remember, I'm being giving you tips on how to answer questions that you're not familiar with. Remember, if you're not sure about the answer, or all the answer looks alike, pick the longest one. Pick the longest one. Don't go for, oh no, I was told that the C is all, no. Forget about that. Because that have changed. That has nothing to do with anything. And remember, always, unless it's an exception, always is not the right answer. Always is not the right. Never is not the right answer unless it's an exception. So for phlebotomy, never an exception, never recap a needle. Remember the little cover that you remove from the needle? You cannot put it back after you use the needle. Because when you do that, what is it that you're going to do? Poke yourself, and now you're in big trouble. So that's basically what it is. Baseline. Here we have the terms. It's the flat line. All the lines that we're going to see on the EKG paper is going to be the flat lines, the horizontal lines. So that is called the isoelectric line. And it is in red because they're going to tell you, okay, baseline or the flat line in between this or where the EKG is sitting on, what is called? You're going to look for baseline or you're going to look for isoelectric line. That's what it's actually called. And it's right there. Oh, someone comes here to do the maintenance?
Yeah. Surprised they came by so fast. Last time I we were on a swing home.
Can you go back?
Sure. No problem. Everybody wrote your emails, right? And your email is very clear, right? Do you guys use your last name? That's it? And then
First name, last name.
oh, okay. Yeah.
My email is my last name first, and then my
Yeah, with mustard.
No, just to make sure, because if I have your names there, I know that when I see it,
Okay.
the R is not like the Z or the X or something like that.
Oh, okay.
That I'm not gonna mess that up, you know, because I'm gonna send you. Any questions? Okay, so the EKG waves and complexes, atrial contraction occurs during P wave and the PR segment. So what it's trying to tell you that when the atria contracts, what do we see on an EKG? The P wave and the segment. So, because after that, the ventricles are going to contract. And what we're going to see? We're going to see the rest, the QRS complex and the ST segment. So you see there are different ways of putting this. So it's very important for you to understand that there is a little twist when you answer the questions. It's not like cut clear sometimes. Remember, the atria contracts, what do we see on an EKG? The P wave and the segment. But if the segment is not part of the answer, the P wave, that is it. Oh, no, something is missing, the answer is not here, so I'm not going to respond anything. No, that doesn't work that way. Remember, sometimes they give you like partial answer, but it's the best answer. So that's what you pick. And for ventricular contraction, the same. When the ventricles contract, you see the QRS complex plus the ST wave. Why is the P wave not included? Because the P wave is not part of the depolarization, the contraction. So that's basically what it is. Yes?
Say that again.
If I ask what is it then the P wave of the T wave is not included in this segment. It's not included because the P wave has nothing to do with contraction. If the atria contracts during the contraction, the PR interval, the PR interval of the PR segment, they are part of the atrial contraction because it's before the QRS. But during the contraction of the ventricle, you're gonna see the QRS complex and the ST segment because it's contraction that they are asking you. So the T wave has nothing to do with that. 100%, you're gonna get this question. What is the T wave represents? What the T wave represents on an EKG? Repolarization. The T wave is the last one. Is the one when it relaxes, when it depolarizes. Repolarization, relaxation means the same. So that is always asked on exams, the T wave. Because that is when everything relaxes. And then start all over again with the atria contracting. Okay, so we are going to look a couple of strips from an EKG to find and to look for these waves. It says identifying the P waves, QRS complexes, and T waves. When we learn electrocardiogram or electrocardiography, what we do is we check that all the components of an EKG needs to be present in order for us to determine that this EKG is normal, that the patient is not having problems with their heart. See, the patient comes, I work in emergency, right? I work in emergency for 14 years. That were like 100 to me, because I was working every day, 12 hours per day. For 14 years. That is a lot. That multiplied by 3.
Like you had to do that?
No, that was my choice.
Okay.
Because I want money. No, there are 3 days.
It's 3 days.
You are, that's your full time. 3 days, 3 12.
12 hours.
Right. When I started in 2005, there were 24-hour shifts. Then we got a meeting with some. Once again, pay attention to this in order for us to know immediately, as soon as you see an EKG, check for all the components on EKG. If you see all of them in order, P wave, QRS, T wave, next. P wave, QRS, it doesn't matter how they look like. It's just that they're present. So we know already that the heart is not too serious. Why? Because in the emergency, what I was going to say, people comes complaining about chest pain. But it turns out that is not the chest. But still, we have to evaluate the chest because we gotta kind of go for things that can be critical. You cannot doubt what the patient tell you. I'm having chest pains. Oh my God, I have this pain so hard. And it turns out that after we do all these evaluations, it was the stomach, it was an ulcer, it was acid reflux, it was something that has nothing to do with it. But now we know that you are not in such a trouble. But we have to go through all the process. So for that reason, we do an EKG. Problem with the EKG is sometimes it doesn't capture what's really going on, or what have already happened. Let's say that you just have chest pain. You were having like some pre-heart attack. Let's put it that way. Then I do an EKG. Now you're feeling a little better. It's not gonna show up. It's gonna show up if you're having it right now, or if you have a heart attack back in the days. It will show up. But something that it is a little pain or something, it's not gonna show up. So for that reason, we use it just as a technical, support, but we cannot trust 100% on an EKG. Then we do blood, we do some chemistry laboratories, and some echocardiogram, some other tests if it is required. Okay, so that's basically. Okay, so let's take a break, and when we come back, so let's take 25 minutes, 30 minutes.